Two Bulls in a China Shop is brought to you in part by our sponsors and friends over at Manscaped, Trade Pro Academy, and Vanta Trading. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming with precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and with a new and improved 2.0 version of the Weed Whacker now available, it's the perfect time to take advantage of our exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping using promo code 2bulls at manscaped.com. As always, that is the number 2. And when it comes to institutional quality trading education, look no further than tradeproacademy.com. In our free Discord server, you'll find instructions to take advantage of our discount with them as well. And for anyone trading futures, check out vantatrading.com. Founded by Mr. W. Banks and Baba Yaga, they provide a ton of educational content with the focus of teaching aspiring traders how to build a repeatable, profitable process. Our exclusive discount code for Vanta can also be found in our free Discord server. We'll have all of those links and more in the episode description. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation.
You are listening to an entertainment program put together by a company called Financial Ineptitude. Anything said on this show is not an endorsement or professional advice. Would you really want to tell a court of law you were suing us because you thought taking financial advice from two idiots on a podcast put out by Financial Ineptitude was a good idea? Really? Clown hat smiley face.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the China Shop. I'm your host, and joining me today is our favorite, not quite economist, but almost aspiring, Erik Smolinski, host of ES Invests. How are you doing today, Erik?
Definitely not aspiring to be an economist.
Are you sure? Because you got a lot of compliments on that roundtable episode.
I like being able, I didn't hear any of them, but I like being able to trade and live a simple life, not worried about the relationships of everything.
Simple life, like Paris Hilton.
I'm a simple people.
What's going on in your world? You got anything new going on? Any good interviews coming up or stuff planned for the world?
Yeah. I actually connected with somebody that you turned me on to, Richard Friesen, yesterday. We recorded a podcast for the Outlier podcast. I renamed Money Talks to that because I realized if you call it the Outlier podcast, the abbreviation is TOP, which is too fun to not take advantage of. So yeah, I have had a really, really fun conversation with him. Like, it's fascinating to me because, like we were talking about just a few minutes ago, the world of psychology and trading, I think, is probably one of the primary differentiators between like successful retail traders and not. Because if it wasn't, and there was a way to systematize what we do, everybody would do that and everybody would make money. So there's a reason why that doesn't happen. And to me, one of the first thresholds is psychology, but I have a very unique approach to it, I believe. And I don't connect or identify with a lot of like just, I guess, what I consider to be psychological practices and stuff like that. So it was so fun to get to talk to somebody who's so immersed in that world and tap into that experience and just learn about it, man, because it's so foreign to me. So like
I just wonder if it would have been a completely different experience if you'd met him like 10 years ago or while you were still developing your systems.
I feel like that certainly is the case. I think the problem is while I respect people that benefit from those kind of external audits, I grossly overvalue my capacity to analyze and work through problems autonomously. Like, I never liked the idea of needing external assistance for just about anything. And while I do think it's great to get those external inputs, I typically use my friends for that.
Right.
And you know, the idea of having like a dedicated session with a professional to explore those kinds of things, while I totally understand the utility of it, it just, yeah, it's very foreign to me. So I couldn't agree more with you though. Like, especially in my formative years, it probably would have been just really effective. But a lot of the stuff, I don't know, I kind of had a natural penchant. Was really interesting hearing some of the techniques and stuff he talks about, because it's literally shit that I do, which is hilarious to me because I don't study any of this.
Oh man, when's that come out?
So it'll probably be, I'm guessing, like 2 weeks, something like that. So I'm gonna probably target sometime the week of 17 April, somewhere in there.
All right, cool. So right in time for tax season.
Yeah, this way when everybody's considering seppuku, they could go back through and, you know, get through it okay.
Nice reference there. All right. Well, what do we have to talk about today? Anything catching your eye in the news?
There's a couple things. I actually am interested to talk about that oil thing that you brought up via OPEC Plus, and then I also think we should talk just a little bit about what we're seeing in the central banking world, essentially, like globally, where
Hmm.
there's just a lot of talk about the reserve currencies and shifts there and whatnot, which I think is a really cool dialogue. So, whichever of those sounds appealing to you.
I hadn't been paying too much attention to that. I think I might have saw a couple headlines. So yeah, I'm curious to know what's been going on in that world. Yeah, if we want to start with the OPEC stuff, though,
For sure.
everyone's talking about this being a surprise decision, but is it really that surprising? That's kind of the thing that I don't quite get. Like they're saying that the Saudis want higher prices. They've been saying that $95 a barrel is what they've been aspiring to. They're making these cuts like basically right before the summer, driving splurges go on, like when the US typically uses a lot more oil. Like, is it really that surprising that they'd announce a supply cut?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I don't follow the behavior and the decision cycle of OPEC Plus like that closely. But to me,
Yeah.
I've always identified the summer season as kind of an inherent tightening cycle because just as you're talking about, demand goes up, right? So
Right.
right out of the
Right.
gate, there is in a built-in tightening cycle unless production scales with it. So to me, it almost seems like we're doubling up here, where we
Hmm.
have that natural cycle, but then we're also talking about essentially reducing supply simultaneously, which I do find that interesting. I gotta say.
Well, here's the other thing too. Like most of Russia's economy is based on fossil fuels, right? The exporting of oil and natural gases. So I mean, I
Mhm.
almost wonder if maybe this isn't something that they're trying to do to just despite us, because OPEC doesn't really much care for the U.S.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what we want is nowhere near their priority list. They couldn't possibly fucking care less.
Right? And didn't one of them switch recently to the yuan? I mean, this kind of segues into the story that you brought up, but I thought I had
Um,
seen that one of them was making the transition to switching to taking China's currency rather than the U.S.'s currency for their oil supply.
that's let me see.
I thought I had saw that last week, but maybe that's just something that's been ongoing, or that they started taking it along with the dollar, maybe instead.
That yeah, I think that sounds right to me because I
Yeah.
do know that a lot of places are starting to accept the yuan, but I think that I just in general I think it's such a fascinating transition because just the entire concept of reserve currencies and all of that. One of the cool things I love about the markets is like if you've never thought about the reserve currency, if you follow the news loosely, you're now like, oh shit, reserve currency, it means something, but what does it mean? And then
Hmm.
you go and you learn about it. And like that, I really enjoy that exercise because the reserve currency is actually it's a long-standing function and it dates back to essentially the Dutch when they were the shipbuilding expert.
Hmm.
So it's like it's just the history of it's really interesting. But from a more
Huh.
practical standpoint, there's definitely some pretty big effects that are being felt. So, like you were talking about, we're starting to see different countries accepting more and more of the yuan, and the yuan is already, they've made it pretty clear. China has made it pretty clear that they want it to be the reserve currency, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, the problem is I just, this would actually be a great conversation with Eric. I'd be really curious about his thoughts because from my ignorant Cro-Magnon perspective, I don't really see a viable alternative yet to the dollar. And that's not because like I just dislike China. I actually don't dislike China. I think they're incredibly smart. And a lot of the things that they're doing right now, like I was telling you before, genuinely impress me. But I don't see another alternative.
I have a hard time understanding why people would want to put their faith into China's government. Because I mean, isn't that what you're doing when you're accepting the yuan as like a reserve currency? Is you're assuming that they're going to be around long term to back it?
Yes, and I mean, I would argue that they probably are going to be around for a while, but I think an equal part of that is not that they want to back China. I think an equal part of it is they want not to back US,
That
right?
makes sense.
So Yeah, so I think a lot of it is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or whatever the fuck that saying is. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I do believe to a certain degree that that's part of what we're seeing.
So what was the latest country to switch over? I think I saw, was that Brazil in the article that you posted here?
Yeah, yeah. So Brazil is now essentially what it the one topped the euro as the second currency in foreign reserves in Brazil. So what it's saying is that is slowly becoming the dominant currency in Brazil. So it's not a super far leap before that could potentially become the currency.
Oh shit, that happened quick too.
Well, I think the thing that people, but this is, news and media for you, because
Hmm.
right now the dollar is still like over 80% of the total foreign reserves in Brazil.
Right.
But the
Yeah.
world sees things starting to move and they're like, oh shit. But to their point, and it's a good point, when we talk about reserve currencies, it typically changes like every 100 years or so.
Hmm.
And the change is about 15 to 20 years long, like the actual transition. So a
Right.
lot, like, it's not something that you see overnight. So I understand why people are looking at this, because it is interesting, because this does start going down that path.
It's interesting that Brazil would, especially to increase their ties with China over Europe, like
Sure.
because the yuan replaced the euro to become their second largest foreign
Yeah.
reserve, right?
The
So I
the
wonder what the
thing,
reasoning behind that was.
it's because China's investing massively, and they have a naturally close relationship. So from a kind of geopolitical standpoint, and this is more from like, I don't my experience in the Marine Corps and like still in the reserves, like I pay attention to this stuff very closely because it's important. And the China Belt and Road Initiative it's in the works. It's
Yeah.
massive. And we're already starting to see the effects of that exactly as we're talking about right now, which is in Brazil and in a lot of other places that are starting to become um, big feathers in China's cap. And they're developing a very, very effective global infrastructure for themselves. What people don't understand is like China it's an ancient country. It's
Yeah.
ancient, right? It's one
Oh
of the
yeah.
oldest civilizations that we have. So China doesn't move super fast. They're not always at the latest and greatest. It's why their approach to technology largely is to steal it from other places, reverse engineer it, and then maybe optimize it a little bit. But they're not at the cutting end of a lot of innovation, comparatively speaking.
And
But
that's
what they
honestly why I never really took them seriously as a global power, is because they don't innovate yet.
they don't need to. And that's one of the things that again they're really good at, because if you look at where they're expanding all of their influence, they're not executing a 10-year, 20-year, or even a 30-year plan.
No.
They're building a 50 plus year roadmap, and they're
Hmm.
laying the foundation for it. It's why, the US is going through this giant green initiative. We want to get away from fossil fuels. Guess who's buying up all of the fucking lithium providers that goes into our
Yep.
batteries? It
Yeah,
is
and they've done that.
very,
Yeah, they've been grabbing rare earth metals and all kinds of shit for decades now, I'd say.
and it's because they have the foresight and
Yep.
they develop these really long standing processes. That's why I'm so impressed by them. Is I love innovation. I wouldn't trade innovation for kind of that style,
Hmm.
because I also think that that's what ultimately will keep them, I wouldn't say subservient, but I do think it would be very difficult for them to like overtake things.
Well, it's hard to
um
steal from somebody if you're the leader. You can't be the leader and still be
yeah.
able to steal technology, right? I mean, that makes it a
And
little
I
more
mean,
difficult.
I think the argument could be maybe they could get to the point where they're proficient enough to essentially, accept that role, but then run with it.
Hmm.
But I think when I look at, essentially China's GDP is what's expected to surpass the US's by 2030.
Yeah.
So they're growing very fast. But I think the approach to their growth has some drawbacks that will be realized over time. And it goes back to the reserve currency conversation. Like, we know definitively, not US propaganda, no, but we know objectively that China regularly interferes with the yuan. Not saying that the US doesn't,
Right.
but
Right.
China manipulates the yuan regularly. So because of that, it's almost like, would it make sense to move from the US dollar, which is already in place, already accepted, for essentially the same thing, but that's even less stable? And I
Is
think
that
that
less
that's,
stable or more stable because they manipulate it?
well, I think it's less stable. And it's, to your point, though, I think it's less stable not in the face value, but in what goes into maintaining that face value. Because to your
Gotcha.
point, the face value, yeah, the face value of the wand can actually be very stable. But I think
Hmm.
it's all of the underpinnings that go into making that happen that actually make it less stable. Because as soon as one of those disconnects or it's not working anymore,
Right.
it's going to be felt pretty severely.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Fucking crazy stuff. This is why the markets are so intriguing, dude, is you learn about all of these things. And even if you don't really
Everything
care
is
about the,
so interconnected.
yes,
Sorry,
exactly.
sorry.
Mm,
I didn't mean to cut you off
I
there.
agree with you. No, I think, yeah, I think you're spot on.
So is Brazil like one of the largest economies to uh, be accepting more of the young? Because I think Brazil is one of the major economies in South America, if not the top.
Yeah, I think it's the 12th largest in the Americas.
It's got to be pretty far up there in the world stage too, I think. I think it's one of those ones that you don't really think about, but is like in the top 20.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm looking it up right now, and I think it's in the top 25.
Okay, okay. That's interesting.
Number number 12.
Number 12 in the world?
Brazil is the 12th largest economy in the world and the largest in South America.
Yeah.
So I
Damn,
was
that's
wrong before. Yeah, I
bigger than I
misspoke.
thought. Yeah, wow.
Mhm. My wife has never said that to me. But
Oh man. I was thinking more to the point you were making about how China plays this long game. And that's one of the things that I think the US has a hard time being able to compete with because we go through election cycles every
that's
four
exactly
years
it.
for the president, and the Senate goes through its own, the House goes through its
That's
own.
exactly it.
So
And
you
not only
basically,
that,
yeah, yeah,
it's not only that, but it's completely divided. Like, not,
right.
again, I couldn't possibly care less to dive into the world of politics, but I really do believe that the degree of divisiveness that we've bred, it
Hmm.
just kneecaps us. It absolutely kneecaps us.
No, because you're spending the first 2 years of every new presidency undoing everything the last administration did, is what it feels like.
Exactly. And I think that without any sort of broader strategic aligned vision, that's exactly what happens. Now, let's be clear though, like it's not as if China is like this super unified
No.
or country either. It's definitely not, right? Look at look at China's history, right? A lot
Hmm.
of the dynasties that they had were just marred by war.
Yeah.
So, and if as soon as you start reading about Mao Zedong, you realize what's going on. So, I don't think that they're like super aligned, but what they do is essentially force it, and they're good at that.
Yeah. That's easier when you're a communist regime.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think is the long-term implications of this?
I have no fucking idea. Neither does anybody else.
Just something interesting to pay attention to.
Exactly. And I mean, joking aside, I do think it's fascinating, and I have a bunch of different thoughts, but
Hmm.
I'm really reluctant to answer those kind of questions just because I think it promulgates the stereotypical talking heads of financial media that attempt to tie clean, neat bows on probably the most complex systems in the world. So anybody who says definitively that they know what's going to happen is full of shit. Um, but
We've never
to
been
your
afraid to
point,
say I don't know.
yeah,
I say that a lot.
exactly. Yes, and but I think there's a certain degree of authenticity in that that's missing from a lot of these other sources because I genuinely there's a lot of things that could happen. What I do think is in the short term, there's a lot of hysteria, and I label it as hysteria
Hmm.
because we're not at a point yet where I think the world writ large is going to start migrating over to the yuan. And the other thing beyond that is the fact that I Russia tried it, and they tried to do it with the ruble with natural
Yeah.
gas and whatnot. So the I still think even if it started to happen, it would be so fractured because the U.S. is like they're not going to do it.
I mean, didn't we? I always thought that we like upped our production of natural gas and oil specifically to tank the Russian economy, since we knew it was so dependent on it. Like I always had the thought that that was kind of like the end game of that, like opening up a lot of the reserves in the U.S. and doing more of the drilling.
Well, I mean, to be honest, that's a big part of just this entire proxy war that we're fighting right now via Ukraine.
Right. Yeah.
Is it's to just continue to kneecap Russia. That's what people fail to understand in a lot of these instances, is that, it's much less about the short term, this is the pain that's happening right now, or this sucks right now. It is very much about 20 years from now, 30 years from now, like who's positioned where.
Yeah, everybody says they want to use more of our oil. I always say, why don't we use up the world's oil first, and then we can use ours? Like, wouldn't that be a better
And that,
scenario?
and that's exactly it. And we can
Yeah.
fucking fuel it via debt. And debt gets a really bad rap in a lot of ways. I think in the US, we definitely do have a debt problem, to be completely straightforward,
Yeah.
because our our spending is just and this isn't, again, this isn't like a conservative or liberal bifurcation in thought process. It's just, it literally is dollars and cents. And just the spending is, we're going to essentially perpetually be in debt, which, who knows? There's a lot of smart people making these decisions, but
Hey everyone, Future Kyle here, introducing a quick sneak peek of my upcoming conversation with Vanta Trading's Baba Yaga.
I consider myself someone who has fine-tuned a process that is dependable and can create probabilistic returns with a positive expected value over a large enough sample size, and that's about it. Like,
That's really all you can ask for, though, right?
yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal. I think everyone wants to be 10-foot tall, bulletproof, trade 500 lots in one single order, and make $1 million a day. But
Everyone says they do, but
well, I can tell you the stress of that would be
uh-huh.
insurmountable for me.
Full conversation will be available on April 10th. If you haven't heard by now, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using code 2bulls for 20% off and free shipping. God damn, I was going to make that joke. Our friends over at Manscaped were kind enough to send me the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, and I gotta say, I was impressed with the quality and performance of the products. My thick, coarse beard hair has been giving me trouble with trimmers in the past, but the Beard Hedger was able to cut through the thicket without any tugging or discomfort at all. And because the trimmer has one rotary wheel with 20 length settings with only one guard, I don't have to worry about losing or breaking attachments anymore. So I've tamed my mane, and now you can too. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with that beard hedger that I mentioned. The thing's a juggernaut of fixing faces. Not only does it have the trimmer with the rotary wheel that gives you the 20 hair cutting lengths of just the one guard, it's also waterproof, so you can shave in the shower and avoid all the hair in the sink. The titanium coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to a single stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. Phrasing. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. They also created 4 dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care. First is the beard shampoo and conditioner. Gotta remember that all your hair is different. Beard hair, as I mentioned, is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head, if you have hair on your head. That's why the kit has made shampoo and conditioner specially designed to moisturize, reduce ingrown hairs, replace natural oils, and promote beard health. Next, the kit has Manscaped's Beard Oil, an essential piece for your main facial accessory. No one wants a guy whose beard is brittle and dry. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath while adding a little shimmer and shine, which makes you look extra fine. Cap off the kit with the Beard Balm, a pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look to attract any fellows or dames. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with code 2bulls at manscaped.com. Of course, that's the number 2. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using code 2bulls. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. All right, well, we got a few more minutes left before we wrap this up. I wanted to just toss something over your way just to kind of get your opinion or your thoughts on it. I was thinking about the idea of like taking time off, like when your job is to make money in the stock market. Like, how often are you taking time away from that? Like, how often are you going on vacations just to like kind of refresh, reset your batteries, and keep yourself fresh?
Um, there are really different things for me. So
Oh
like
yeah.
the yeah, so the whole idea is to create the financial structure to be able to do relatively, the things that you want to do. Um, but very rarely am I in a position where it's like I'm just so beat down that I've got to take time. Otherwise, like my mental health isn't there, or I can't function properly anymore. I don't really get to that state.
And that might be just because I mean, you got a much different system than trying to day trade too. So that makes sense that like for you, it's more about
Exactly.
maintaining positions, like just check on them every now and then.
Exactly. And that is 100%. And that's 100% why I've spent so much of my life attempting to create the infrastructure that I have for trading is for that exact benefit, literally right there. Because
Hmm.
could I have more aggressively grown my account? Um, Probably. Like if I really wanted to, I probably could have. But again, like talking about these deep games, back when I was in my early 20s, I already knew I love the markets. I'm fascinated by them, but I already knew the whole point of me doing what I do is to create freedom.
Hmm.
So the idea of being in a position where the only way you can continue to generate income is to be strapped in front of a screen, waiting for a certain condition to pop up, hoping that you can take advantage of it, sounds awful to me.
I mean, yeah, if you're doing that for 9 hours a day, but if you can do it for 1 or 2 hours a day.
Even still, I mean, to me, that's very spoon to mouth style of
Hmm.
existence.
Interesting.
And yeah, because then everything you do comes in the lens of an opportunity cost. And
Right.
that
Yes.
starts
Yes.
to weigh on you. Like
It
I don't
does.
want to be put in that position.
That I think you just basically explained why it's so hard to take a day off when you're trying to do the trading that I'm trying to do because it's exactly right. Like you feel like you're missing out.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I told you, I essentially have the emotional intelligence of a rock. But if you think of it pragmatically, that's exactly what it comes down to. It's just a trade off.
Interesting thing though is the way I used to combat that was by just taking time to do observation challenges, like spend a week just observing the markets on only observing, and then just making note of how many opportunities are present every day. And knowing that there's opportunities to take advantage of every day, like refreshing that in my mind has made me feel less stress about missing this one because there'll be another one. Miss this one, okay. There'll be another one later. It's no big deal. Don't have to chase it.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that that's huge. And I think that that is still probably one of the biggest issues with attempting to day trade. I really think day trade is such a fucking scam. I really do. I think day trading, I think it's promulgated as like this super cool way to do whatever you want, trade from wherever you want, and yada, yada, yada. And I genuinely think it's all fucking bullshit. I think most people who attempt to trade those timeframes as like their sole means of trading don't do well unless you're an institution. That's not to say that you can't do well. There are plenty of people who can do well. But even if you get to the point where you can do well, what's the opportunity cost? How much time does it take? And what other things could you be doing with that time? Like the last session we were talking about, you and I were discussing some of the other things that I'm getting involved in via the commercial real estate stuff.
Right.
And the only reason why I'm doing that is because I'm not so suppressed attempting to make ends meet via my trading that I can very easily pick my head up, look left, look right, and look for other opportunities.
Well, I mean, one of the things we were told in the very beginning when we started pursuing this path is that successful day traders turn into investors. Like they don't stick around long. They make their money, then they turn into more of a long-term type strategy, and they just let that grow. Once you've made your money, you don't need to keep extracting more and more out of it. You go enjoy it.
Sure. I mean, that sounds good. I don't know many people that do that successfully.
Right, right.
Like, I know of very few traders personally. And again, I throw the word personally not as like an appeal to authority, but just because this is like my own personal foxhole. Like my contact points are limited. But
Mhm.
I know of very few traders that started as day traders and then migrated away from it into something else.
They just died at the computer screen.
Don't know of many successful day traders.
Yeah, there's.
Like any,
Have you been on Twitter?
I would have to think really hard about this, honestly, but I would almost wager that any of my friends and like my trader friends, I probably have maybe 25 or 30 of them just for like a sample size.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know any that just day trade.
I'll have to give you a list of people to talk to and see if I can get some people to change your mind.
Oh, again, like day trading is entirely viable. Like I know I've read plenty of books about it and I know plenty of people that have tinkered with it in some capacity or another. And what it tells me is like if you can successfully day trade as like part of a system, why couldn't you just do most of that? Right. So I know it's possible, but my broader point is I don't know many that have like knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the people that you're reading their books about trading, most of them are not day trading as the primary vehicle.
Interesting. What are they doing?
Well, I mean, I look at somebody like Mark Minervini. He's a great example of like a different style to what I do, but was supremely successful.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I like using him as an example is because I'm pretty sure he even dropped out of fucking high school. So it's not like this is like some super educated dude. So he's like very much a trader, but essentially he trades CanSlim, like a version of CanSlim that he's modified to himself. And he swing trades. So he's holding things for longer periods of time to take advantage of big moves. So I like most people that I know that do really well are close to that. Not that exact style,
yeah.
but yeah.
I have noticed the tendency, it seems, to lengthen your time horizon. Every time I've done that, it seems like I've had better success.
Of course, because
something to keep
the most difficult time frame to trade is intraday. And I say this tongue in cheek because I traded 0 DTE SPX short strangles today and I made some money on them. So it's not that I don't do it, but I think the people that dedicate their entire toolkit and strategy set to do only that time frame, that's where the giant mistake is. I think being able to trade short term, 0 DTE, 2 DTE, a week, whatever, I think all of that's good. But this goes back to my general approach to the markets, where I think as soon as you become too boxed in and you're a 1-trick pony or a 2-trick pony, there's gonna be a lot of fucking times where you don't do well or you have to sit out. That doesn't appeal to me. Like my entire objective is to seamlessly do my best to interact with the markets. I am here to just try to take some money out of there. I'm not trying to impose what I prefer, what I think the market should do, what strategies that I like, what timeframes that I like. None of that matters. What matters is what the market's doing and how can I apply the best fit strategy to take advantage to the best of my ability of the current market conditions. I think that's the name of the fucking game.
I think that's very well said. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was actually a really fun discussion. We might have to.
Well,
I have to try to set up another. Oh yeah.
I have a question for you. Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm curious, like, because I know that you trade shorter term timeframes like that. What is your wear and tear like on your just mental faculties like week over week? Do you feel it like weighing on you?
What I feel weighing on me is all the other stuff that I've got going on outside of trading.
That's interesting.
I think I've talked to you a bit about some of the opportunities that we've got coming up, and there's been a lot of push to get some materials put together for some another opportunity to grow the podcast and that aspect of the business. And
got it.
Yeah, so I mean, like there's this feeling of like I'd rather just kind of take a couple days away from that, spend some time working, get all this stuff together. But then there's that guilt feeling, like you said, like, oh, what's the opportunity cost? What am I missing out? I'm still paying for data. I'm paying for this eval account that I'm halfway to getting past. Like, do I want to just lose that? Yeah, it's the opportunity cost. It's basically what it boils down to.
Got it.
And I think you did a great job of putting that into words, and that gives me something to reflect on, I think.
Yeah, it's super interesting because to me it seems like a really, really, really tough way to essentially, get the job done.
Problem is I just like it so much.
I know.
Like I just thoroughly enjoy the doing it. Like I enjoy the people that I interact with. I enjoy the sharing of ideas, the researching new strategies and setups. But I mean, like you said, I think I might have pigeonholed myself into one time frame, and maybe I need to start looking to branch that out again.
I also think that that's just one of the most like toxic aspects to fall into with trading is when it's a hobby, like when you really like it. Like I genuinely believe that's when like trading becomes the most dangerous.
When it's a hobby,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm not
Like when
treating
it's
it like a hobby. I'll tell you that right now.
well, what I mean is like when it's something that like you thoroughly enjoy, that it's something that like you derive satisfaction from.
I see.
I think you can derive satisfaction from it, but it's like a really delicate dance to keep it like mentally sequestered so that it doesn't become a source
Ah,
of satisfaction.
right, right. Interesting. Hmm. Well, we've gone longer than I was hoping, so I knew when I brought this topic up that that was going to happen, but that's all right.
It's fair.
All fucking awesome discussions. I love having these. I love having you on. Thanks again for joining, and thank you, listeners, for sticking around to the end of this thing. If you want to see more or hear more from Erik, make sure you check out his YouTube channel at ES Invests and Twitter of the same name. You can check us out at twobullsinachinashop.com. Be back in your ears soon with another exciting episode. But until then, share this episode with your friends like it's hepatitis C and take care.
Goodbye.
Two Bulls in a China Shop is an entertainment program, and all thoughts and opinions expressed in the show belong to the hosts and not of any company. They are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide entertainment about stocks in the financial industry of trading. If you make trades based on what you hear in this show, you assume all risks for those trades.
That's the second time you said the word bifurcate. My wife's going to be so happy.
Why?
She's a wordophile. She loves words.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, it's a
Especially
good word.
when they're big words and good words and they're used correctly.